The Plague Chapel. Hidden deep within the forest near the village of Seeshaupt in Bavaria lies a quiet clearing upon which an ancient chapel stands. It appears lonely and almost forgotten. Centuries ago, this house of worship was built upon ground that had once been a cemetery. Victims of the plague were laid to rest here. The memory of that terrible disease still clings to the stone walls like an invisible shadow. This is how the little chapel received its ominous name, the Plague Chapel. Anyone who sets eyes upon it instantly senses the weight of its dark past. Around the Plague Chapel and in the surrounding woods, there are several old wells driven deep into the earth. They once supplied vital water but have long since run dry. Thick layers of moss and rusty grates now cover their openings so that no one falls inside. 4 of these wells can still be found today. Yet it is said that a 5th well once existed. That well had been filled in many years ago and can no longer be located. In earlier times, these wells served another dreadful purpose that continues to haunt this place. In the year 1633, the plague returned to this region with merciless force. Day after day, people succumbed to the Black Death, and the desperate inhabitants soon no longer knew where to bury the dead. The 4 dried-up wells in the forest were turned into makeshift mass graves. The bodies were thrown down into the cold depths, layer after layer, until the shafts were filled to the brim. Still, the plague demanded ever more victims. Eventually, large pits were dug outside the chapel itself for the sole purpose of disposing of the dead as quickly as possible. The haste and despair exacted a horrific price. Not every plague sufferer was actually dead when thrown into the pit. Some were still alive, and as they were cast down among the corpses, they tried with their last strength to climb back up. The gravediggers pushed them down again, knowing that there was no hope left for them. Thus, some plague victims were buried alive, and their cries of torment and mortal fear faded only when the earth finally silenced them. Even today, it is said that the horrors of that time did not remain buried. On certain nights, the restless spirits of those who were cast into the ground and the wells rise again. Despair and terror have burned themselves deep into their tortured souls, preventing them from finding peace. They haunt the chapel at night as dark figures, drifting over the graves of their own bodies. Local people know that the Plague Chapel must be avoided after nightfall. Anyone reckless enough to approach may encounter these spirits. They seize any living soul who draws too near and drag them into the dreadful grave beneath the earth. There is more that renders this place sinister. Before the chapel entrance, strange patterns are visible in the grass and gravel. Upon closer examination, one can discern concentric circles pressed into the ground as if shaped by an unseen force. No wind and no coincidence created them. The locals understand these circles to be signs of dark happenings that continue to unfold here even now. For a very long time, and even to this day, cloaked figures have gathered before the Plague Chapel in the dead of night. Hidden beneath dark hoods, they stand in a circle aligned with the mysterious markings. They speak words from ancient times that summon nothing good. Their rituals are not meant for heaven, but for the powers of darkness. These satanic rites have left behind a malevolent presence that can be felt even in daylight. Courageous or foolish night wanderers often report eerie lights near the chapel. Suddenly candles flicker there, red as fresh blood, though no one can be seen who might have placed or lighted them. Their glow creeps over the ground and casts an ominous light upon the chapel wall. Then an inverted black cross is said to appear, mocking faith itself. Anyone who witnesses this sight must flee at once. No one should dare to peer through the windows or try the chapel door. Something malevolent waits behind those walls only to be seen. Anyone who ignores these warnings and looks through the windows beholds a terrifying figure that cannot be human. Its skin is red, and its demonic eyes stare directly into the viewer's soul. A single glance shatters courage and fills even the bravest with panic. Nevertheless, there are always some who attempt to open the chapel door to discover the entity within. None who entered the chapel ever returned. They vanished without a trace. The terror transcends the chapel itself. The surrounding woods appear infused with the same malevolent force. Dark shapes stand motionless between the trees, yet seem to creep closer the longer one looks. Some hear whispers, sighs, or footsteps behind them while seeing no one nearby. It feels as if the spirits of the chapel have extended their influence far into the forest. Even wanderers by daylight speak of feeling watched, and one story in particular has become infamous. On a hot summer day, a young couple embarked on an innocent hike near the plague chapel. The sun shone brightly and all seemed peaceful at first. As they began their return, everything changed. Paths they had taken now dissolved into nothing, while others twisted deeper into the woods with no exit in sight. It was as if the forest itself had decided not to release them. Hours passed as they became increasingly disoriented. At sunset, the trees turned into towering shadows, and the sensation of being watched intensified. The couple panicked and wandered aimlessly, every step carrying them deeper into a darkness that felt endless. Then they saw something that froze their blood. Only a few meters ahead hung a woman in old-fashioned clothing suspended by a rope from the branch of a gnarled tree. Her body swayed gently as if moved by a breeze, though the air was utterly still. Shock rooted the couple to the ground. Then terror seized them and they ran, screaming for help that never came. They stumbled through the night until their legs burned and their throats were raw. Every direction appeared the same, and every path led further into the forest's gloom. Suddenly a distant dog bark broke the silence like a glimmer of hope amidst the horror. They chased the sound, tripping over roots, calling to their unseen savior. At last they burst from the woods. They were safe. No trace of the dog could be found. The couple informed the police, who returned with them the next morning to the place where they had seen the hanged woman. No body was found. The forest had swallowed its secret once more. The most famous story surrounding the plague chapel concerns an old folk tale about a great black dog that roamed the woods centuries ago. No one knew where he had come from, although he was often seen wandering alone among the trees. His solitude ended in 1625, when he befriended a 13-year-old girl who visited the chapel every day. A deep friendship formed between the child and the animal. She played with him, stroked his black fur, and explored the woods at his side. The dog waited for her every day with joy, for she was his only friend in a world that offered him nothing else. One day, however, the girl did not appear. The dog sat down before the chapel and waited. He waited for a long time. Yet no one came. Growing restless, he sniffed the ground and eventually picked up her familiar scent. It led him deeper into the forest to where the fifth well was located. When he reached the well, he looked down over the edge into the dark shaft. Far below, at the bottom of the gloomy well, lay the girl, motionless, her eyes closed forever. A terrible crime had been committed against her. Someone had raped and murdered her, and finally thrown her lifeless body into the well. The dog remained there for several days and nights, hoping his human friend would wake up and climb back to him. Time and again, he lowered his head into the shaft and barked, believing his voice might rouse her. Yet the longer he waited there, the clearer it became to him that she would never rise again. Then he caught another scent clinging to the girl, one that had not been hers before, but one he recognized. At that moment, he understood who had brought this evil upon her. The next morning, villagers came to the chapel to attend Mass. The priest leading them stepped forward with solemn dignity. Suddenly the dog burst out of the forest, fur bristling, teeth bared. He lunged at the priest, dragged him to the ground, and mortally wounded him with a bite to the throat. The man gasped for air as his blood darkened the earth. With his last tortured breath, he confessed his crime before the horrified onlookers. He named the fifth well and what he had done there. Then the priest died. The shocked villagers hurried to the place he had named and found the girl exactly as he had said. A new priest was summoned, and a funeral was held at the well. It was decided that the girl would be buried there. The well was filled in and became her final resting place. Years passed, and the loyal black dog eventually died somewhere among the trees of the forest. Yet his soul found no rest, for he could not forget the girl. So the tale is told that his spirit still wanders through the woods, especially at night, his eyes glowing red in the darkness. Some nocturnal wanderers claim he appeared to them when they had lost their way. Without a growl and without fear of humans, he would walk ahead of them and lead them safely out of the forest. Others tell of hearing his barking in the distance, guiding them back to safety when they followed the direction of the sound. Despite his protective nature, there is one place in the forest where no one may ever go. The spot where the fifth well lies buried is sacred to the spirit of the dog. Anyone who approaches it awakens not the kind guardian but a raging beast. His glowing eyes turn into sparks of pure fury, and his teeth into merciless weapons. He allows no one to leave alive if he believes they threaten the eternal peace of his buried friend. One night, a curious young man decided to investigate the stories about the black dog. Armed with a flashlight and seeking a thrill, he ventured deep into the forest, unknowingly drawing dangerously close to the forbidden place. Suddenly, his flashlight reflected the dog's red eyes in the darkness. It was the last thing he ever saw. The next morning, his mutilated body was found in the forest. So be careful where you walk in the woods around the chapel. You are not alone there. You are being watched. The black dog still guards those dark places to this very day. He does not forget, and his loyalty endures for all eternity.